Ready? Yeah. Okay, so please everyone, welcome again, Raphaël.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, first I would like to start with thank you for this wonderful event. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I learned a lot. So thanks to the organizer, and it was a real pleasure to be with you and to talk with you and to hear about your project. So thanks a lot. My talk is called Floating Swarm. The big title is Art in the Interstices of Networks at a Time of Fragile Attentions. So a little bit of background. I hope you can see the wonderful background I put. So a little bit of background. When I was in design school, I learned about MySpace, and I quickly created an account on MySpace. And so maybe you guys can remember, if you are old enough, this bio box, form box that you can fill with your actual biography or HTML and CSS code to inject violently in your profile page a couple of changes, like adding or removing graphical elements in order to build your own graphic identity for other users. So I was really into that, and I experimented a lot and I was fascinated with what people made this time. So I'm going to show a quick scroll of an archive I made out of my personal page. So it's a little piece of history I have on my hard drive, and I'm really proud of it. So as you can see, it's really creative, and people used a lot of images they built for this purpose, only for posting on walls and to affirm the identity of our personal, let's say, personal publicity. And this was full of a gigantic image and typography, HTML collage, and form art, and other crazy stuff, such as, of course, animated GIFs, and as this one, repetition and patterns and amazing experiments like that. So this created, of course, really heavy pages to load, but that was part of the game as well. And everybody were artists at the time. So the question, am I an artist? Am I able to post in this place or not, was not a real question. It was not because identity itself was super blur, and we didn't really know at the time who was who, and that was super exciting. Missing pictures are part of the idea now as well. So back to my presentation. This is so after the discovering of MySpace, I quickly learned about a niche in netart called the surf club or surfing club, which were at the time, which are nowadays as well, collaborative blogs made for and by artists. So it's a little bit like artist-run space, but online. And this was amazing, and this is still amazing, how people experimented the post format, because the creations were at the post format. So this is a timeline made in 2016 by Paul Slocum, posted on rhythm.org. By the way, you can find back my presentation online. You will have the URL and the links and stuff. So. And the upper part here shows the main surf club. There isn't few of them, but they are really different and really interesting. I would like to show you quickly one of my favorites, which is Spirit Surfers, made by opened by Kevin Beresdorf. So this kind of blog it's a basic WordPress with many users, and this kind of blog posts are found material and reinterpreted and hijacked by artists. So this particular project is really interesting. I mean, Spirit Surfer, for two reasons. The first one is the content and the way the blog itself is designed. So the identity of the contributor is really complex, and it's like a scheme, a puzzle to play with. And also most of the time, sometimes less and less now, the posts are split between the boon and the wake part. I will leave you a browse around those posts. The second reason is that Spirit Surfer is still active, so those posts are really recent. And so yeah, I really love this website, and I suggest that you take a moment to understand it and to browse it. I mean, when I talk about a moment, it's a bit a rabbit hole, so take 1 or 2 hours to understand it. Okay, so those surf clubs, I experimented it a lot by taking part of it sometimes and making my own, which is now in the process of being conserved. Like I have to fix the broken WordPress that is not online anymore. So anyway, it's really fragile pieces of culture, as everything on the internet, by the way, in my opinion. And those soft clubs are, for me, the perfect format to bring in class for students. So those people are the student, one of my students of last semester in Parsons in Paris, the Parsons School of Paris. And I had a class called Web for Art, which was about netart and about creative processes. And basically I teach technically how to make web pages and how to think about it, and how to have a conceptual approach to the code and the content in general. The piece you can see on the screen is by Olia Lialina. So I'm showing them this piece, which is, as you can see maybe, which is a free browser's piece, like a triptych called Self-Portrait. She made it this year. By the way, if you don't know the work of Olia Lialina, I really suggest you to go on her website, because she's amazing. And as you can see, this project is split among the HTTP, the Tor network, and the DAT network that I will talk about later. I'm not setting up the triptych on my computer because I want you to make it yourself. It's really fun to assemble those browser in order to have the animation. This is an animated piece. And yeah, this is just a tweet mentioning also Ivan Ross that showed the same piece to his students as well. Lately, actually 3 days ago, I met my new student at the Karlsruhe University of Art and Design, where I am a guest professor during 6 months. And I really want to work with them on the same subject, on the subject I will show you in a couple of seconds. Okay, so let's talk a bit about that, or not, because you may already know what it is about. So just the important thing to say about that is that I came to discover that by the wonderful project Beaker Browser, and for that it makes the transition between the Matilda's talk and mine. So this Beaker Browser is a browser based on WebKit, I think, and you can. Yeah, it allows a lot of stuff, and it allows to publish and read and browse the DAT-based data. This piece is a piece called Renaming the Web. I made with so I'm on the Beaker browser, and unfortunately I'm not connected to the network. But this piece is actually showing it shows its own nodes. It's a drawing that shows its own node. So as you can see on the upper right side, there is one node plus myself, my computer. So there is two nodes, and the spider here is not happy because her web is fucked up. So let's draw it again. We made this online piece is part of a larger physical exhibition that we made with Louis Drull. I'm going to show quickly a video of it, documentation. So basically, this is a really small space in Paris, and there is 5 computers running, Raspberry Pis running, and at the startup, Beaker Browser is launched directly. And these small networks, the small network based on 5 computers, sorry, shows is reflected in this drawing. So you can see that this dot just appeared because this computer just boots. The result is also in a sound piece because each computer is making a pattern of beeps that were hard coded into the. And the sound piece is making a proper infinite sound creation, let's say. It's important to understand that the network is tested all the time during all the exhibitions. So computers are rebooted. Quite violently by 2 ways. The first way is a mechanical timer that shuts up the power of the computer. The second way is a more often randomly generated timer on the Raspberry Pi itself. So it allows to test the network and to kill the computer and to make the drawing change actually. And sometimes you have just one node that is active with the spider with just one dot on her drawing. By the way, this video is on PeerTube as well, so you will be able to to watch it. I wanted to bring cards here because it's paper drawings that you can take at home. But I forgot about it, so do not hesitate to contact me in Paris so I can show my studio and give you a card. Floating Swarm. This is a project I want to talk about. So this is a DAT-based project that goes with the Beaker browser that I began originally for my Parsons students. So basically, it's like a surf club based on that. Initially for students, but I quickly realized that it would be really interesting to mix students and more experimented artists, just to make an art platform more mixed. So what is interesting for students with the DAT protocol is that they can really quickly and really easily make a folder on their computer to turn it into public web peer-to-peer website. So that means no domain names to purchase, neither a server disk space. So also there is a really nice behaviors that I really like personally is the archiving. If you're a node, if you're part of the node, if you're sharing the information, and if you begin to seed the information you see, you are also archiving the work, and the process, all the question of conservation and durability of a work is much more supported by a small network of seeders and a person who, on purpose or not, are seeding the work. And I find it really interesting. So the WordPress hacking problem doesn't exist anymore. And then there is a fork option. It's literally a fork button on Beaker Browser that allows to make a copy of what you are seeing. That is super interesting to discuss with the student and to experiment. Sorry, it was wow, was not expecting this. Okay, contemporary typography. Do you guys know what a web ring is, or remember it? Yeah. Okay, so back in the 90s, web rings was a way to link websites together by adding next and previous navigation bar. And it was an inspiration for me to build a floating swarm. So basically, you have computers, not computers, but servers that are linked together with a bar of navigation, and you can go next, 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 and having the same kind of subject as a user. Yeah. So I decided to take this original idea of on that with Beaker Browser, and to take the advantage of the structure of the network to make to keep the content on the computer of the user and the artists. And to add first a menu, and not just a previous and next button. And then this by adding a script, or make people add a script to their page, to the JavaScript script to their page, allowing to have a common navigation bar. So this is really easy and really easy to understand when you are beginning to code a website or a web page. So those are the two URLs. So the first one is that row URL, and the second one is a more easily to reach URL of the floating swarm project. So let's go to visit it quickly. This is floating swarm on the Beaker Browser. This is the home page. And there is a submission list here, and I will go through some of the work. So the submission is so as you can see, this top navigation menu is injected by the script hosted on my computer. And every composition putting this script in order to add this bar. So this is the first composition by A. Leo. That is a collage of different code experiments. That is slightly interactive. So there is photography and scripts and other weird and adapted work. Overflown by, sorry, oh, it crashed. The good thing with Beaker is that I can access this without any internet connection, because I host the files just because I choose to seed it forever. So Overflown is a work by Émilie Crangel, student at the Art Déco de Paris. So basically, this is a traveling piece of video that she made aboard of a plane, I guess. And so it goes on the right side of my page. So as a viewer, I need to interact with this page in order to keep the video going visible. And she added slight graphic elements that you can maybe see trying to track manually the vehicles on this video, and I find it really, really nice. I'm going to try to be a bit quicker. This is a piece I made. Commit, fork, merge, yeah. This is a collaboration with my... Oh, I don't see this one. What a shame. Oh yeah, cool. This is a collaboration with Louise Drull. And so this is a digitalized drawing showing a crowd. The piece is called Foule, which means crowd in French. And we just added a function of auto-scroll because the drawing is looping. Quickly, this is a piece by Laurel Schutz. So she recorded in a concert, quite pirately, I mean as a pirate way, with her own device, and then she made this full screen player, and yeah, we can hear the friction with this pocket, her pocket. So she made this player, and the player is made of these photographs in background and just the bird that's mapped on the timeline. That's representing the timeline. So it's a really beautiful piece, I think. Okay, maybe a last one. This is Elena Mars, Identity in 3 layers. So this is a really simple, technically simple piece that is made of photographs and textures and a bit of typography as well. And I found it really interesting because so she was a student of mine, and she made this wonderful poetic work without. I mean, it's her first web page, so it's really not about technical difficulty, but more about sensibility, and I find it really interesting for that. Also, yeah, I'm going to skip to the conclusion. Sorry. Okay, so this last work shows how much. You have to imagine that there is a process of putting online those files and understand what is that, and what is Beaker Browser, of course, and what is not the web that we use every day in comparison. So this is a really nice educational tool, in my opinion, for that reason, because you can compare actually. So the as a publication art publication system, I think it's interesting to continue in a certain netart way, to be not a market related place to make art and to experiment. And for that, those tools, alternative tools and networks are really interesting and make sense in this direction. Also, internet-based art are not the web-based art. So all the network that we can imagine are potential places to experiment as artists. And so let's bring that networks in class, and let's try to get critical together with the students. Also, a critical view of technology and publishing system in an economic context for students and artists. What I mean about that is that there is no need of of money to make such project, and there is a whole landscape of techniques and technologies to learn to. And some questions: should the curational choices be decentralized? I'm talking about floating swarm because, as you said in one of my schemes, the script itself is centralized by me, and the choice itself is centralized by me. So I'm questioning about. I mean, that's part of my current questions. So should I keep it like that, or should I build something to try to make a shared curational work? And how to explore the principle of that and Beaker Browser to make relevant works. So does it make sense to make the same work I should have posted on the traditional web on the DAT network? That's a question I leave open. And just to come back to the previous question, Beaker and DAT allows, as I said, many stuff that the normal web doesn't. So that's super exciting for us as artists. And then how those protocols can evolve by taking in consideration an experimental use of it. Maybe the answer could be artists should make pull requests to that those group who build those wonderful tools and protocols. So that's my website. I'm on Twitter and Mastodon, and you can also browse yourself Floating Swarm here. And this is the link of the presentation, so you can access it right now to have access to the. Thank you very much.
Sorry about the internet. Thank you. All right, any questions, Raphaël? Okay.
Yeah, hi, so it's more of an educational question. I was curious on how you approach this website making with your students, so that because that's really a part of the art project. So how do they make the websites? Yeah, so I was wondering how they made the websites, because as an educator, that's for some a hard topic to grasp. So how did you, yeah.
So it's how like what's your approach to teaching your students how to make websites? Like, do they learn?
Because that's really linked, I think, to the floating.
Yeah, like how do you teach your students web development? Like how to make websites?
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, I'm personally using exclusively open source tools, so I try to leave the choice open to my student, but most of the time I'm trying to learn about the basics of HTML itself, and then adding a little bit of style, and then programming. But the most important way is for me to make a web page or a website is to understand exactly how people are publishing, where they are publishing, and why they are publishing, because it's really a question that is most of the time skipped. And that is, for me, at the root of contemporary culture. So it's super easy to publish, but most of the time, nobody knows actually what does it mean and what is this place where we publish. So my course in Karlsruhe will be really focused on that kind of question, which are not technical questions, but you have to understand techniques and structures of network to get a better idea of what you are actually doing as a designer, artist, or just writer.
Hi there. How easily do these students get their head around the idea that when they are using Beaker Browser, they are also responsible for sharing the content as well as downloading it? Because this is different to the web, and there's all kinds of legal implications as a result of that I imagine would be interesting to speak about with students.
Well, they quite understand it super quickly, because when the first time they publish on Beaker Browser, if they get offline or if they close the computer, the content is not accessible anymore. So that's a super nice problem, yeah, because they understand that they are the only node to have it until I or they find another node to host it that is more permanent. By the way, there is this project Hashbase that allows that. That was made by the team of Beaker Browser, Tara Van Sil, and Paul Frazee. So this Hashbase service allows that and was made for that at the beginning, at least at the project. But I strongly recommend them to make their own selection of their friend and to be seeders as well, and not just readers and clients actually. So the question of being a server is at the root of the beginning of the introduction of Beaker and that. But that's not easy. I mean, that's easy just when they have the